All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Samurai Brothers Wrestling, episode 15. And so, Matthew, as you know, we've got the World Team Trials. The finals are going on in two segments. So, the first segment was in Stillwater, Oklahoma. That took place on Friday, June 3rd. And the second half of the World Team Trials Finals is going to take place this coming Wednesday in New York. So, Matthew, it looks like, as always with things, when it gets really competitive and when people are trying to get onto the world stage, it can really, people will push themselves to the limits. So, we saw a few things, and there were some people who did pull off some upsets over those who had acquired their final X spots. So just want to see how we're doing with that. Who is on the World Team Trials, at least for the first 15 weight classes that were decided. So,
well, as you mentioned, Matt Russ, in some cases, is a thing. So,
yeah, but I think this is some fun and exciting times. Don't you agree?
Yes.
All right. So we'll go ahead and get into it then. And what I want to show first is we'll go ahead and go to the results of the Final X Stillwater. So I'm going to screen share with you about this. So give me 1 second here. All right. So can you see the screen, Matthew?
Yes, I can.
All right. So from USA Wrestling, it said that 5 series went to a full 3 matches, and we have our first 15 on the world team for the USA. So let's go through each of them then. So looking at men's freestyle first, because that's who they have listed. So Matt, as you can see, Thomas Gilman is your 57 men's freestyle representative, and he actually did quite a number on Vitaly Arajau. The first match he won 12-2, and then the second match he won 14-2. So I know that in the previous, if we go back to the freestyle preview that we had, Gilman he had also won all 3 of their matches, but only one of them was what you would consider to be a dominant match. So I think, was there just something that, was a fire lit up in Gilman that, he really turned up the heat against Arajau?
Well, this is one of those situations where the defending guy was just it's possible that the ring rust in this case, obviously ring rust was not a factor, but then also on top of that, the defending guy, he didn't want to just go out there. He wanted to go out there and dominate, which clearly he did. So,
more like making a statement.
Yeah, he made a statement.
Yeah,
2 techs, that's a statement. The only way in which you could, get more dominant is like 2 pins.
Yeah, that would definitely. So yeah.
And he was just like, "Oh, you're not gonna let me pin you? Fine, I'm just gonna run right through you."
Yeah, so now Gilman leads their series 5-0, and clearly dominant fashion now. So good for him. I mean, Gilman, number 1 ranked in the world as far as the UWW is concerned. So I guess this shouldn't really be that much of a surprise. I'm just surprised that considering how their last match was a close one, that then he goes out and he really again, like mentioned before, he goes out and makes the statement that, hey, he's going to be the one representing the U.S. So Thomas Gilman, 57 kilos men's freestyle. So now we go to the next one, 61 men's freestyle, and Seth Gross pulls off the upset over Dayton Fix. Fix was a world medalist, and so that's how he claimed his final X spot. And Fix did take the first match. He took it 5-5, which means that I have to imagine in this case it was a last score based on that it was probably criteria. The criteria was probably tied. I'd have to go back and look at the match results, but here, Fix did take the first match, but then it was Seth Gross who came back to take the last two. And he took it 5-4 in the second match, and then he took it 9-5 in the third match. So, Matthew, what do you think of the fact that, hey, Gross he pulled off the upset here, so he is going to represent the United States at 61 men's freestyle. And if I go back to the preview here, the fact of the matter is that Fix had teched Seth Gross 11-0 in last year's World Team Trials. But so you think it was a matter of making adjustments that allowed Gross to take this one?
Yes, and not just that, but making adjustments at the event. Like, he was just like, okay, this is what went wrong in the first match, so I need to go back and readjust, and probably talk to his coaches and stuff like that, and clearly it worked out, because here he is, and here it was, and he got it. So
yep. So Seth Gross making the World Team Trials, and I'd have to go back and look at it, because I know that I was seeing some articles writing about how some of the team members are making their first World Team Trials. But again, yeah, this should be interesting. And this actually happened again at 70 kilos, because Zane Rutherford, as you know, from the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club. So, you got Penn State versus Jordan Oliver of Oklahoma State fame. And it was Zane who took the series 2-1. Now, this one went a little different, because Rutherford took the first match. He took it 8-3. And then Jordan Oliver kind of, he had a close one. Excuse me. He had a close one. He defeats Rutherford 5-4, but Rutherford then comes back and beats Oliver 4-3. So Oliver was the one who, was sitting in the finals, and he had not lost in Gallagher Eva, and so Rutherford coming in here really having a goal in mind, and that was to defeat Jordan Oliver. And if I look at the previews for their matchup, let me see here, I'll try and go back here. So, and I think as we both know, it was quite an event, but Oliver was ahead 3-2 in their overall matchup. But Rutherford has now kind of tied it up where it mattered. So now they're tied 4-4, but it's going to be Rutherford this time representing the world team. What do you think he had in mind in terms of trying to unseat Oliver in this case?
Well, he went in there with his he just went in there with the mentality of, I've wrestled him before, I know what I have to do in order to get it done. So that's what he did. So, and obviously it was a close series. As you said, they're now tied up 4-4, but obviously what matters is the last match. And he won the last match, which got him the team trial spot.
Mm-hmm. Well, and, sometimes it's really difficult to do it on someone's home turf. I mean, you have to imagine the mentality behind that. I mean, you've had to, I think you would probably remember from, the days when you were at Villa Park. Now, I don't remember all the matches, but when you would go out and duel people, I mean, I'm sure you won matches away from home, right? In duels?
I won matches away from home. I lost matches at home. So it all depended on the opponent. It all depended on how good I was doing and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But, yeah, it's just a combination of factors. You go in there, you wrestle, and you don't let the away or home factor play into it.
Yeah, so I think Rutherford really, really kind of got that out of his head as far as that goes.
Yeah, like my junior year, I don't think I lost a duel match. Yeah, I don't think I lost a duel match. I just went out there and wrestled every single time and I won, so.
That's good. All right, so yeah, Zane Rutherford gets his spot, so it's not his first time that he'll be on the world team because if we go back to the previews that they had, Rutherford did represent the U.S. in 2019, so just gaining back that spot. So it's now his time to shine, and we'll see what he does. So 92 kilos. This is the third another series that goes the distance, but it was unlike the previous two. It was the person who had the final X spot that did end up winning. So Jaden Cox decision, Nathan Jackson, 2 matches to 1. Cox won the first match 4-2, but then Jackson comes back and wins the second match 3-2. But then Cox blanks Jackson in the final match 3-0. And as you know, Matthew, Nathan Jackson is our to you and me. He's been kind of our elusive man because we couldn't really find him in any of the listings and stuff. So we were trying to figure out where did he come from. And but he got one up on Cox and he almost took it there. But I think Cox really, he played. I think he, based on the fact that it was a 3-0 match in the final match, plays good offense and defense at the same time. Is that correct?
Yeah, that would be the best way to describe it. Did we ever find out what how Nathan
did?
Yeah.
You mean what Nathan Jackson did to qualify himself for the World Team Trials?
Yeah.
I still haven't been able to find it.
Isn't there like an official match? Someone has to have an official match database. It's like that's the only way that we're gonna find out at this point. Because USA Wrestling,
that one database that I found, that was only for it's called WrestleStat, but it's only for NCAA matches.
There's got to be some. I think there has to be some listing for other matches because I know that what's it called, there's certain international wrestlers on Wikipedia who have their matches listed. Like I think Daniel Cormier has his matches listed in addition to his MMA matches. So someone has to know. So maybe just Wikipedia isn't the best place to use as a source, but they list sources. So that's a good way of an example being that in certain summer in college when I do certain papers, I would use Wikipedia as the research point. And I actually, using the references listed in Wikipedia, was actually able to do a research paper on a certain Civil War ancestor of ours. Well, the regiment, anyways, but yeah. So.
Well, yeah, I'm very sure. I mean, because I know that. Have you seen Kale's page? Because it actually Wikipedia does have all the results. Well, at least it lists all 159 of his matches. Now, there are a few matches where the opponent is unknown, or the result might be unknown, but it has everything on there.
Well, that might go back to the fact that, you know, certain schools may not retain may not archive their tournaments, especially those open tournaments.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, good point. I mean, gotta wonder how far back can you find records of, let's say the Roadrunner Open that's hosted by Cal Bakersfield.
Well, like another example, you know, we've talked about just going back to kind of a local California level, the Tournament Masters Inc., and how since that's down, you know, a lot of those records have been lost, and those go back.
Yeah, they go back about 2 decades.
Yeah. So.
But you know, the only real tournament that people bothered to archive the PDF for was 5 counties. Because I've been able to retrieve the PDF of the brackets for 5 counties, but I've not been able to find anything else.
Like I said, it's like it's got to be somewhere. It's somewhere in the informational coding ether. So I'm 95% sure. It's like if you talk to the guy, I'm sure you could find it. That's just, I should note that
if his computer didn't crash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, even if it crashed, you could retrieve the data.
Yeah.
Like it's somewhere. Even like if I was able to retrieve all the information on MMA Freak, like that's another example. Like for those of you who don't know, I actually had to do a lot of coding information for MMA Freak, and I'm not a coder. But the tech guy that we had was just so busy on other projects, and I was, you know, he was doing this on a voluntary basis. I was straight up telling him, look, I'll pay you, because at the time I was making enough money to afford to pay him. So I was telling him, look, I will pay you to do this. And he's just like, I'm sorry, I'm too busy with other projects. So I had to actually go in, retrieve the data myself, and then like with WordPress, they have something that's called, what's it called? Migrating a site. So I had to download the files and then migrate the site myself. And then when I ran into an error, I had to figure out what was wrong with the migration and then make edits to the coding. And then go back in and have and finish the migration. That was probably the most challenging thing I've ever had to do with coding. So if I could do that, it's got to be in there somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good stuff to hear. Definitely glad that you were able to get the site up and running again. For sure. I mean, you know, takes, you know, whenever something gets lost, you know, especially if it's something that, you know, people might not be thinking about it right now, but, you know, maybe they might want to know, maybe 20, 30 years down the line, oh, yeah, I did this and stuff. You know, I think it'd be good for people to be able to look back on that.
Well, and then also, you know, CIF has to have at least the postseason archives somewhere.
I'm sure that they do, but in their case, they probably don't bother to. They don't bother to really list them. And like actually, you know, and if you'll notice, you know, you can't really find league results unless someone who is really active is going to post it. Like, I talked to the coach of the at Western. You know, nobody really asks for the results. He says he's got results from past stuff, but nobody asks him for it, so he doesn't post it because nobody asks about it. And I'm almost certain that that's probably the same with a lot of the other leagues. You know, they probably don't post about this stuff. Now, I'm sure it would be pretty cool to see if there's any, like, you know, for example, dual results and stuff. I think that's important too. You know.
Well, one example I'm gonna throw out there, the Century League. My, you know, back back when I knew it as the Century League, that's now qualified as the Century Conference. And depending on the sport, it's either going to have 2 little mini leagues or it's going to have 1 giant league depending on the sport. So, and I'm sure that
because it's 8 teams now or something?
Yeah, it's 8 teams now or something like that. So,
that's interesting.
Yeah, that's one of those things where it's very complicated again because depending on the sport, it's either going to be 8. It's either going to be however many teams, or it's going to be divided. So it's now the Century Conference. I'm just like, if it's going to full on be like a conference, there has to be a physical office. There has to be archives somewhere. That entity.
See what you're saying now.
Yeah, any kind of conference exists as a legal entity. So there has to be a physical archive somewhere of this stuff. They have to keep it. They have to. So it's a question of where.
Okay, well, you know what? You just gave me some ideas, because now that I know that means that I could try to reach out to the conference, because I've been wanting to compile Coach Silva's dual records and all the results and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, like this, Leo. Well, yeah, if you want to do that, like go to the CCAA. That's a much bigger organization than a high school level. They have to have a physical office.
I'm sure that they do. I just don't know how cooperative, or I don't know. I don't want to say cooperative, but I don't know how much time that they would use to answer a question about wrestling versus any of the other.
Well, something that I learned when I took my journalism classes at your alma mater is there's something called I can't remember what it's fully called, but it's a records request. You should probably reach out to that office and ask about records requests, because if you make a records request to a government entity, because realistically those are government entities, they have to reply, because this is done on the federal level, this is done on the state level, this is done on the local level.
Okay. Wow, that sounds great. Well, that means that I could probably get a lot more information.
Yeah.
I still want to. I'm still in the middle of trying to compile a lot of those records and stuff.
I don't know if the same guy is still in charge, but he talked about how at and I saw the awards. He runs the top community college journalism program in the nation, not California, the nation. He competes with journalism programs like NYU. So it's no joke. But SAC doesn't like him teaching his people to do their job, aka poke around in everybody's business. Like there's several of the departments, like I said, maybe this changed when I was there, maybe not. And you know as well as I do, I ran into problems when I was at SAC, or learning and stuff like that. But if they basically have a lot of standing order with a bunch of the departments to basically not answer questions. But if you fill out a records request, they have to fill again. They don't like that because all of a sudden they're forced to do it. So it's one of those things where it's ironic how SAC, they don't promote SAC, they don't promote wrestling. they don't promote the journalism program because they actually do their jobs. They're successful, but they don't, answer the bureaucracy. You know Vince Silva. And I know Vince Silva. That's one of the reasons why I have a huge amount of respect for him. And I didn't wrestle under him.
Yeah. Very true. Very true.
And I'm not afraid to throw the. Like I said, this was a while ago. This was like 7-8 years ago or something like that. But I ain't afraid to throw them under the bus. Like, there was this time where we talked about what it's like. It's like, should we talk about certain stuff on this podcast? Should we not talk about certain stuff? This is something I'm not afraid to talk about. What are they gonna do?
Yeah, we're just a couple of guys. We're a couple of nobodies. We just like to talk about stuff, and hey, this is how stuff works. Out in the real world. Sometimes people are in a fantasy bubble. So. Okay, we've seen it, we lived it, so yeah.
We kind of went off. We kind of went off on a tangent. Where were we? We're talking about the Final X.
Yeah, we're talking about Final X. So we just got done with Jaden Cox, claiming his spot, defending his spot on the world team. So, and then the people didn't see it, so now we're gonna go to Kyle Snyder.
Oh, we're talking about Nathaniel Jackson?
Yeah, Nathaniel Jackson.
The mystery...
Yeah, our mystery qualifier.
Oh, right, that's how we went down that rabbit hole, is that we were like, where did he come from?
We're trying to find out the information about the guy, because he was never on the listing for USA Wrestling. So then he comes out in the middle of nowhere, and we're trying to figure out, okay, where did this guy come from? I don't know. But anyway, from Kyle Snyder, Matthew, I guess this goes without saying, he took Colin Moore in both matches, 11-0 and 12-2. So.
Well, yeah, no surprise there. He's it's been a while since he won a gold, but he's still the top dog in the U.S. So.
Yeah, what more? You know what I found funny is I think it was Flo. Flo was really pushing. At least when I would see a couple of these ads or I'd see some of these posts by Flo, man, they were hustling for Colin Moore. It's like, oh, is Colin Moore gonna pull the upset? So.
Well, as we've talked about before, it's like the fact of the matter is you're not gonna see a biased news source nowadays. I'm gonna be honest. There's certain people that I gravitate towards on MMA Freak, and it's just like, that's another ironic thing was that just going back as an example when I was doing the stuff at SAC for the journalism program, they brought up a conflict of interest. The reality is there's always a conflict of interest. If you're involved in some kind of community, there's always going to be a conflict of interest. You'd have to be someone new, completely disconnected from that community in order to not have a conflict of interest.
Yeah, you're right.
But in that regard, you'd probably be new to the community and not know what to do. Like for example, probably the only unbiased person who would be reporting on chess, for example, would be me, because I'm not involved in chess, but I know very little about the I don't know if you call it a sport. I know very little about the competition. So, but you have to try to make an effort to at least be somewhat unbiased, which is what I try to do on MMA Freak. Like, for example, it's like I may be a little biased towards Valentina Shevchenko as a fighter. I'm going to be biased towards certain wrestlers as well, but, I'm not going to, keep going off. We keep squirreling.
This is good. This is good that we can talk about this stuff. You know, it's always good. You know, I mean, sometimes people just get so into their bubble that they can't have some decent conversations about stuff. But yeah, you know, Kyle again. He's number one. So I guess it's just a matter now whether he can.
I feel like he's going to win a championship again at some point.
Well, especially if Russia doesn't send their world championship.
Well, they can't send their team to the world championship as long as this war's going on, right?
As long as, the UWW has a ban against the Russians.
Well, and they're following lockstep with everybody else, so unless I don't know, would they go as like a non-aligned team or something like that?
That would be interesting to see what the UWW would say about
that.
Because
isn't that what happened in the last Olympics? The Russians were allowed to compete, but they had to go under the Olympic flag.
Yeah, wasn't there though some allegations? Wasn't it like due to corruption or?
I thought it was PEDs.
Yeah. I think you're right. Yeah, it was PEDs.
Well, that happened in they allowed that as well, and then there was another Russian PED scandal at the Winter Olympics earlier this year.
Right. Oh gosh, the winter, man! I forgot that the Winter Olympics happened.
You know, something that was really weird. I forgot. Was it the long jump? I think it's the skiing long jump. I think they did it at a certain angle to where you didn't see it, but it looked like if you looked at where it looked like it was in the middle of a post-apocalyptic wasteland. It looked like they did it in the It looked like they did it in the middle of a junkyard. Oh my gosh!
It was not pretty. Yeah, it was not pretty.
It's like Beijing. I hope you enjoyed having 2 major Olympics there. It's like.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get back on track then.
Women.
Go to the women's. We're just kind of going down the list here now. So I was hearing about this one. So Jakara Winchester ended up winning over Jenna Burkett, who was the final X opponent. And Burkett took the first match 6-4. But apparently what happened was that I have to go back and read about it. And I don't know if Burkett took a shot or if it was a throw or something, because from what it sounded like, Burkett landed on her head. Landed pretty hard, like full weight, kind of like a dive, so to speak. So she lost that second match by injury default, and then they actually had to, they did get an ambulance to the arena, and they had to take her off. So because of that, Burkett could not, she had to default the third match too.
So this was more like a freak accident than anything else.
Yeah, I'd be kind of curious to see what the actual match looked like.
Well, we talked about doing highlights at some point on here, so maybe we should see if we can't look at that. We've got a full line plan for this week, but maybe next week.
Yeah, we're trying to find some matches here and there. But Burkett did. I don't know if she tweeted or put it on Instagram, but she did put out a social media message saying that she was okay, which is, in my mind, that's a good thing. That means that she's, no serious injuries. And, you and I both know it's like, hate to see people hurt. We've both gone through our fair share of, injuries that have sidelined us from, wrestling and stuff. So glad to see that she's okay. But
well, yeah, you broke a vertebra, and I
fractured.
Yeah, you
broke, same thing. Yeah.
You fractured a vertebra, and then I sprained an ankle twice, and then sprained my back all in one season, and was still able to come back and make it farther than any other teammate of mine, and almost made it to state.
Yep. And
you were able to come back and wrestle at one of the most prestigious colleges in Japan. No, one of the most prestigious high schools in Japan.
Took second in Kanagawa Prefecture, too.
What year?
My last year. If I'd won that match, I would have gone to the Inter-High.
It's like, that's another thing about that's another thing about Japanese wrestling. You should have been allowed to go. Like, every single level in American high school wrestling, if you place second, you're going. League.
Yeah, but see, what happens? See, the reason why they only take one is because you have 48 wrestlers per weight going, and you have to do, you also have 8 weight classes, so you have 300 some odd wrestlers competing. So I kind of get where they're coming from. I don't agree with it.
They really should do something. Yeah, isn't there one of those tournaments that does a regional format?
There's one that, in fact, it just happened. I'd have to go back and see what the results of it was. But yes, the Kanto tournament took place, the Kanto regional tournament. And this particular Kanto tournament has nothing to do with qualifying. It's just 8 prefectures and the schools of those 8 prefectures getting together to do their tournament.
Like, if you really think about it, there's enough regions in Japan to justify having, like, a regional tournament and then inter-high.
So yes, there's actually 4 national tournaments. The problem I have with Japanese wrestling is that the only tournaments they have is the qualifying tournaments and they'll have like a couple of regional tournaments and the national tournaments. That's it. There's nothing in between. See, the way that the high school season over here runs, you have all these tournaments, and then you've got your postseason. So that means all these kids over here have had the chance to do tournaments, tournaments that are being held practically every weekend, aside from a few breaks here and there. Like January, there's a tournament every weekend. Once you get past the new year, there's a tournament every single weekend in January. There's a tournament, for up to maybe the 3rd weekend in December too, and a few weekends in November. So you got all these tournaments that you can attend.
That's almost 8 tournaments if you really think about it.
Plus duels.
Yeah. They don't, it's like they don't do any outside duels. They don't do any outside tournaments. It's just 4 national tournaments.
It's 4 yeah, it's basically, so you do 4 qualifiers, which obviously in only one instance does the top 2 go, and that's the Greco tournament. But other than that, you have to win your weight class in order to go to the national tournament. In the case of the Kanto tournament, depending on which one it is, the Kanto tournament, you qualify top 4. Unless you're hosting, then you can qualify top 5. And then the Kanto tournament that happens in January, you qualify, I think, the top 3. So,
well, we talked about how Shonan got an advantage because they had multiple duels with.
Yeah, they would duel with the base team.
Yeah, at the time they had multiple duels with Japan. They went to multiple tournaments. Sometimes other teams would have multiple tournaments. What Mitsu? Which one was Wada coaching at?
Mitsukawa.
Yeah, Mitsukawa. Mitsukawa even came to tournaments once or twice. So those schools all benefited from coming to those tournaments because we know Shonan was ruling the roost at one point, and it's probably because of the fact that they got to get extra matches in with, the base schools. And if we're gonna go another level, the club, the Japanese wrestling clubs got more matches, more tournaments in than the high schools. They got a tournament every month, every other month.
Yeah, every month or so. And there's not a lot of and I'm always baffled by the number of tournaments or lack thereof, open tournaments for adults too. Really, the only tournament you're going to get in Japan for most of the adults are going to be the collegiate tournaments, and even those are kind of far and few between. You've got, maybe a tournament or two in April and May. You've got your open nationals. But again, I just don't know how they manage it, especially when you've got the women going out and winning all the world and Olympic gold medals.
Well, I think we've talked about this before about how women's wrestling is realistically all technique. Until you start, unless you can combine strength with technique, which is one of those things that the American women seem to have that combination with. Whereas, the Japanese women, they just go out there. It's technique. It's like they can't compete a whole lot unless they're the number one international person. So what do they do? Drill. They do all technique. And that's probably why they're so much better than everyone else. Whereas, so in the bubble, the only category in which the style of wrestling that they've done works is women's international wrestling. Whereas with men's wrestling, it's like they'll have. I think they used to be a lot better?
They used to be quite a bit competitive, as far as I knew.
Yeah, they used to be a lot more competitive when it came to freestyle.
They're lucky if they can. They're lucky. The Japanese are lucky if they can have one male wrestler win an Olympic gold.
Yeah, and so I don't know. It's like I don't know if this was more of a recent starting in your time issue, or if it was just something where the world changed and athletics changed or whatever. And it's another thing where it's like, we are very aware of the fact that Japanese do not adjust well to change. Change takes a long time because of tradition and stuff like that. Just to throw something controversial out there, that's why they lost World War II. They had this outdated mentality of how things were supposed to go. The U.S. was thinking, military, naval aircraft and stuff like that, whereas the Japanese were in this old-fashioned, naval warfare, battleships. Fat lot of good they did them. The Yamato never really engaged any other U.S. battleships. The thing got sunk by 300 planes. Biggest battleship in the world got sunk by 300 planes.
One thing I've heard about is that how the Japanese national team used to have they would either have like Russian or American coaches, or non-Japanese coaches, coaching the teams a lot. And after they decided not to have foreign coaches helping out the teams, and I think I had heard that from Noda-san or someone.
Kiguchi, maybe?
Who?
Kiguchi?
Maybe. I don't know. But yeah, now, you'll have these national sports teams, that's prevalent a lot, like, soccer or rugby, that you'll have these coaches that are not of the nationality that they're.
Well, let's throw an example out there. The women's U.S. gymnastics team had I think those Romanian coaches, and they ruled the roost, and it's shown. The women's gymnastics team for the last 5 Olympics have won the women's all around and have been on the podium in all the team events. Some haven't won every single year. Like last year, they got did they get bronze or something like that? But either way, that just goes to show how that's prevailed. Now they had that scandal, recently. We won't get into that, but yeah, that's one example. But just as an example for American wrestling, I think the national coach have been American wrestlers for.
Well, that's because they got the credentials.
Yeah, I mean, we always produce at least one. I'm not
sure who.
I'm not sure the last.
Coaches now.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time the U.S. didn't have at least one world champion or one Olympic champion. I think we've always had at least one.
Right. You're always going to put someone on who's got the credentials. And I'm almost certain that they've been putting Japanese people on the team that have credentials to an extent. But are those credentials going to translate, or are they going to... are they going to transition with the team, trying to, especially if they were learning an older style, because a lot of times I've seen how there's a lot of these old school coaches coaching certain teams, whether it might be their national team, whether it's college teams or club teams or whatever, and they go with a really old style. And you know what? The teams that are not going to adapt are going to get left behind. And that's why when I want to do a segment on this one, the one coach I've mentioned, his name is Osawa, and he used to coach at Kasamigawa High School.
Oh, this guy.
Dominant force. They were the dominant force in Japan.
Yeah, they won inter-high almost every single year.
They won inter-high, I think, somewhere around 20 times, and then they won the spring national tournament another 20 some odd times. So this guy has 40 titles to his name. Then he has to retire from Kasamigawa, and yeah, I don't think they've won a national title since this guy had to retire from their organization. So then Nippon Sports University Kashiwa High School in Chiba picks this guy up, and within 2 to 3 years, guess who's winning all the national titles?
Well, that just goes to show how much of a good coach he is.
So good. Sorry?
That just goes to show how much of a good coach he is.
There are just because I don't think this guy did anything as an athlete. Not to my knowledge. Japan does have good record keeping. I'll tell you that. They will list a lot of stuff that's interesting stuff, but I don't think I've seen anything about this guy, this Osawa. But on top of winning team titles, having anywhere from 3 to 4 guys winning individual titles, and a lot of his, during his time at Kasumi-Gauda, he had a lot of his former proteges. They'd go on to be world team members, world medalists, Olympic members, Olympic medalists. So, this guy, has a very good resume when it comes to coaching people as well. Just imagine how good Japan. I almost would think if the Japanese team made him the coach of their world team, they could be a force again with this guy.
Well, maybe he just enjoys coaching at the high school level.
Probably does. I don't know if they've asked him. I don't know anything about it, but I know that this guy was he was just good at his job. So, anyway. Well, let's try and, going on another squirrel again, but let's try and finish up with checking to see who's representing on the women's side. So let me just.
So we had the freak accident.
Yeah, Jenna Burkett. So unfortunately, she has to bow out this one. So it's Jakara Winchester.
Well, she has to bow out this one in terms of obviously she's an alternate, so she'll probably get those international reps in.
Yes. So at 59 kilos, this was one that did not. These two women were the finalists of the World Team Trials Challenge Tournament, so that meant that they faced each other this time. And it was Abigail Nettie from Army who defeated Lexi Basham. 12-4 and 8-5. So,
as I recall, these two had not faced each other before, right?
Yeah, I'd have to go back. Let's look at what happened with that. So if we go back to, yes, these two had not faced each other, but now it's apparent who the dominant wrestler was, and it was Abigail Nettie. And
the second match. The second match was a little bit closer, but still she won comfortably. So
yeah,
it's those Army chicks.
Then we have an upset at 65 kilos because Mallory Velty won against Forrest Molinari, and she took the. So it looks like here, Matthew, that Mallory Velty was clearly in control, even though she dropped the second match. I mean, she won the first match 9-1, which that in and of itself is pretty dominant, right? I mean, an eight point advantage match, versus a 2-point advantage match is.
She probably just had a bad, second match.
Yeah. So Molinari took the second match 3-1, but then Velty just really closed it out in fashion. 10-0 with a minute 33 into the match. So if we go back to how she had done versus Molinari, Molinari was leading the series 2-1. And she had won the last match when they wrestled each other at the Yasar Dogu. And Molinari had won that match 7-4. You think this might have been just a bad outing for Molinari?
Well, if you look at Molinari, those matches were all close. Those two matches. So it's possible that Velty just made the adjustments, figured out what she needed to do, and just
turned it up.
Yep.
So that's so for the women. Although Tamira Menza stock at 68 kilos.
Not surprising.
Yeah, she prevented, and Matt, we talked last week about
ring rust was not a factor.
She had not competed at all since the World Championships. But she did, she did it in fashion, just like Kyle Snyder did. So
Tech fall, not a factor.
Tech fall. The Olympic gold medalist is back, so we'll see what she gets to do on the international scene for this year, right?
Yep.
So congrats to her. And then two other women who I think this was going to, no matter who won, it was going to be their first world team, qualifying for the world team. And it was Diamond Guilford who defeated Yelena Makoyed to claim that spot.
This was what's her name's spot, right?
Yes, this was Adeline Gray's spot.
Yep. Well, enjoy the time off.
Yep. Guilford won the first match 10-5, and then the second match by tech fall 12-2. So, and I think when they had wrestled, I don't think there was a, oh yes, this was where the series was split 2-0, but, Guilford, she really made it out to see, for who it was going to be this time. So now we'll move on. Oh, so here's this is interesting how this one. Max Nori, so we go into Greco. 55 Greco, Max Nori, decision Brady Kuntz, 1-1 in both matches. Matthew, how would you look at that?
That's a close match.
So let's go back to
for all we know, we need to watch the highlights. For all we know, those could have been. Do they list it? For all we know, those could have been 2 push-out points.
Well, I gotta imagine that.
Do we have results?
Let me see if I can find it on Flow here. Let's see here. Final.
That's upcoming events.
That's upcoming events, tournaments. The Final X New York. Well, my guess, I have to imagine that yeah, it was passivity. Oh, gosh, man. So, Kuntz scored on passivity first, but then Kuntz was called for passivity. Wow. And then Nori... I gotta imagine that's the way it happened in the second match. Yeah, it happened that way in the second match too. I gotta imagine Kuntz was not happy about that. I can't imagine, losing.
Passivity is the way that it was done before the weird era, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but if you remember in the old days, if you were called for passivity, you were put in parterre, and that meant that your opponent had the chance to try and score on you. So now, if you're called for passivity, you're put on the shot clock, and then you have 30 seconds to score. So I'm very sure Kuntz is not happy with that. The fact that he gets put on passivity, although again, we'd have to watch these matches. If Flo put them up, I can't imagine that they would put these up.
Well, I don't think that unlike Matt Lindland's time that Kuntz is going to be able to appeal this.
Yeah.
You know what happened with Matt Lindland, right?
So, yeah, you'll have to re-educate me.
Okay, so Matt Lindland made it to... I can't remember if it was Sydney or Atlanta, but he went to the World Team Trials, and there was a call that was questionable, and it went against him. He appealed it till he exhausted his appeals, and then he took it to court. And the court found it in his favor. So he went to the Olympics and won the silver medal by going to court. And it earned him the nickname The Law. And he carried that into his MMA career as Matt The Law Lindland. He was part of that original generation of wrestlers who were mainly out of Team Quest, who were just like, oh, I can do MMA on the side and make money while I'm wrestling. Yeah. He was Dan Henderson, Randy Couture, Pat Miletich, those he was part of that generation. Back when you could get away with that. Nowadays, it's like, no, it's full time. You're either doing one or the other. It was a different era back, but yeah, that's. We'll see how that goes.
So at 63 kilos, Jesse Thielk won by decision over Sammy Jones in both matches.
Again, close, but not.
Close, but yeah, just nothing that goes the distance. So then you have Benjamin Peake decisioning Patrick Smith 2-1. Smith won the first match, but then Peake would come back to win the next 2 matches.
I wonder how this Patrick Smith feels with coincidentally having a name similar to the first 4-time NCAA champion.
I don't know. That's a good question. You probably have to go by Patrick so people don't confuse him too.
Oh yeah, John Smith's brother goes by Pat Smith, right?
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
So then you got the improviser decisioning Spencer Woods, and this 2 matches to none, 8-0 in the first match, 5-3 in the second match. And then probably our favorite heavyweight, right now?
Yeah.
Colton Schultz decisions Tanner Farmer, 5-1 and 5-2. So Schultz is the obvious representative of Greco. So I would be interested to see how he does on the world stage. Because he makes the NCAA finals as a freshman. So he's kind of young.
He wants to see what he can do.
Yeah. And I was reading about something else. So, at the same time, apparently they were having the U20 World Team Trials, which kind of works the same way as this, where you have a best 2 out of 3. I don't think there's a final export, though. But then there's also a U23 World Team Trials. And apparently...
And here's Colton Schultz, who could do either of those, and he's qualifying for the senior national team.
Right. Colton Schultz, he can exercise... depending on how you do it, the senior World Team Trials, you can exercise your right to accept the spot on the U23 if you desire, which means that... So, if you were not competing at U23... you could opt to compete for U23. So it works a little bit differently.
So he could co-opt whoever won U23.
Right.
So the person would automatically be bumped.
Yeah.
Oh, that would suck.
Yeah, that would.
But I doubt he's going to. I mean, he's gonna, he's here. He is, representing Greco. He's gonna go.
All right, so let's do then a quick preview, Matthew. Final X, New York. So I'll start with Greco. We'll just kind of go through really quick.
I wonder if, I'm going to be honest, I wonder if they picked that name because it just sounded cool, and they're trying to, appeal to a wider audience.
If,
Final X.
When I put in Final X on here on Flo's site, they had it up back to 2018.
Yeah, I saw that.
So, that'll be interesting. Anyway, Final X, New York. will take place on June 8th. And then...
oh, wait, did they talk about the true third match results at Stillwater?
Oh, you know what? That's a good question. Doesn't look like it's on here, but I think it was on...
Let's just do a quick round, and then we'll do... I
gotta remember who was the... 7... 8... I don't think there was a lot, but... Oh, here we go. Freestyle, true third. Oh, hold on. I gotta refresh this. It was... So, Zane Richards. So, yeah, they only did one match. So Zane Richards, called Jacob Camacho.
Oh, yeah, and the way that they do true third with this one was that if the third place did not face the fourth place in the World Team Trials, then they wrestled for the true third.
So,
which was not how it used to be. It used to be a true second, where if the second place did not meet the third place, then they wrestled.
So anyway, yeah, I think there's going to be 3, and then I think the 3 matches will be held. The remaining 3 matches, it looks like, I think are going to be held at New York.
Oh, so they only had the one true third?
Yeah, I think when they had announced it, I think they had announced that there were going to be 4 matches. So let's see here. So for 77 kilo Greco, you got Britton Holmes versus Kamal Bey. They have not wrestled each other at all.
Two Army guys.
Yep, 2 Army guys. So kind of hard to say. You know, I would probably say this is a toss-up, right? And you'd probably say the same thing. This can go either way.
No match results, yeah.
I'm sure they have the credentials, and looks like Perkins though was a. Oh, I'm sorry. So Holmes, 2021 U23 World Team member. Here's what Holmes did. He upset Ravon Perkins, who was the number 1 seed, and Perkins was on the Olympics team for 2016 and a Pan American gold medalist. So Holmes might have something, but let's see. Bey is a 2017 junior world champion, and looks like he had to pull an upset too, because he did defeat 2021 senior world team member and the 2020 Olympic team trials champion Jesse Porter. So both of these guys pulled some upsets to get to this stage, as it looks like. But I think, so in this case, Matthew, I think for both you and me, it's kind of hard to predict who's going to take this. So 2 matches or 3 matches? Let's go there.
I'll say 3.
I'd say 3 too. I think, this can go either way. So
something I'd like to know more is whether Bey is of Moroccan descent, because Bey is used as a honorific in Moroccan, like ethnic Moroccan, or Moroccan Science Temple. So he might, yeah. I'm thinking out loud.
So then our second Greco match, Alan Vera versus Timothy Young. This is only going to be their second match, and they met the first time at the U.S. Open a couple months ago now, and Alan Vera pinned Timothy Young 6-0. So hard to say. Vera he was the U.S. Open. I don't think it says he's the winner. Score at the time of the pin was 4-0. But Young, he wrestled at Old Dominion before it dropped. unfortunately. Former U20 World team member, the third at the U.S. Open.
That's another one of those situations where it's like, oh, you had a successful program and you dropped it.
Yeah.
And the guy that you dropped is competing for the world team. Now, don't you look foolish?
So I don't know. Kind of hard to say how this will go because obviously they've only met once, but Alan Vera did it in dominating fashion. What do you think we have as far as this is concerned, Vera or Young?
I am going to go with I'm gonna go with Vera, but Young could make adjustments and make it a more competitive match. So I'm not gonna be surprised if the next one's more competitive. But I'm going to go with the slight edge for Vera. I'm gonna say three matches.
Yeah, I think 3 matches for Vera is probably what will happen here. So then we've got Alejandro Sancho versus Alston Nutter. And Sancho has won both of their meetups. And they both met each other within the past year, so it's not like there's any time in between matches. So the World Team Trials from last year, Sancho won that 6-5. And then at the U.S. Open, Sancho won again 6-5. So same scores, but Sancho was on the 2020 Olympic team, so he knows his stuff. It looks like a U23 World Team member. He was a U20 World Bronze medalist, but still looks like Sancho still might have the advantage here. But obviously, Nutter could come back. I mean, it's not like he's being dominated; he's losing these close matches to Sancho. Probably for me, I might give the edge to Sancho here, but I think it might be a 2-match advantage. What would you say about this?
I'm gonna give the slight edge to Sancho as well.
So then we've got our 4th Greco match: Dalton Roberts versus Ildar Hafizov, and
now they're all Army.
They've got quite a series going on here. And if I'm looking at the series, it looks like Roberts has the advantage over Hafizov.
Something interesting I should note, just, with the Army, with the military in general, the Marines used to be more well known for their wrestling presence on the world team, and I wonder, but Army was always a close second. I wonder what happened that kind of, where the Marine, you didn't see any Marines.
Mm-hmm. No.
Not at the national tournament.
To the U.S. Open.
Yeah, you didn't see any at the national tournament. Do we even see anyone from like Air Force or Navy?
Not really.
Like both of those branches used to have a presence as well. So it's just like, it's just all Army right now in national wrestling.
Mm-hmm. So Roberts has the advantage, but I should note that even though they've wrestled 7 matches, 6 of those matches happened to be at the World Team Trials. And in both of these cases, both series ended up 2-1, which means that Hafizov would take a match. But
remind me, these are U.S. Army guys, right? Both of them?
Yes, they're both.
I wonder if the two world team 2-1s was because of the fact that they're probably training partners. If they're on the Army team, they train together.
It just seems that Roberts does slightly better.
I'm going to give this one to Roberts, and just as it's been going, I'm going to say it's going to go 3 matches.
Yeah. I mean, Hafizov seems to somehow score a win, but it's just not enough when it counts. He just cannot score that second match to put things away. So, we'll see. 97, this is the only Greco weight class with a Final X opponent. So, and that's D'Angelo Hancock, and he's facing off against Braxton Amos. Looking at how things went, Hancock tech-falled Amos 8-0 both times, which means he probably got I would probably say it was four 4-point throws. Amos hasn't seemed to have a chance here. I don't know, what do you think, Matthew?
I'm going to give it to Hancock. He's a world medalist. He's the Final X opponent, and he just seems to have more experience. So I'm going to say that it's Hancock.
All right. Let's move on to the women really quick, just see how they're doing. And
this is the men's preview.
Oh, sorry. To the women first. So we've got at 72 kilos, Skylar Grote versus Amit Eller, and they have not wrestled each other at all. So, what do we have? Amit Eller is a U17 and U20 world champion, so she does have U.S. team member experience, plus, she's won on the world stage. So, how about Grote? So, she competed at Brock University in Canada. Okay, so there's our second Canadian school as far as wrestling is concerned, and she won college national titles, and she was the U.S. Open runner-up in 2020, but it looks like she's never been on the world stage. So, with that being said, Matthew, do you think that Amit Eller might have the advantage in terms of her experience, having been on the world stage with U17, U20, and even being a world champion?
Yeah, just because of the fact that she has that experience, I'm gonna give her the slight advantage, because we don't necessarily know, because you could have all that experience and then just wrestle someone that's just a bad matchup for you. It's like you and I have both been in those situations before. So I'm gonna say, I'm gonna say Eller by slight advantage. I'm expecting this to go 3 matches.
Yeah, I would have to say the same thing. 3 matches. No matter what happens, either woman winning, this is going to be their first senior U.S. team representation. So then we'll go down to Felicity Taylor versus Dominic Parish, and again, another weight class with no history between them. So, we could, and I think if we were to determine, if we were to have to guess to see who's going to win between the two. So, Parish has a U.S. Open title. She won it in 2019, and she placed 3rd at the Olympic team trial. She's made 3 U.S. world teams. Doesn't look like she has any medals to put herself in a reasonably better position than Taylor. She did wrestle at Simon Fraser University, and she did win the WCWA national title twice. And she also won the 2022 Pan American title. So she did try to wrestle in Final X a few years back. She placed 2nd for the national team. So Felicity Taylor, she has made the finals for NCWWC College Nationals 3 times. She won the title in 2021, placed 2nd in 2020 and 2022. So she placed at the U.S. Open in 2019, and she did win the U.S. Open Seniors and the U23 Nationals title. So, a little bit on the younger side. And so, I don't know, Matthew. This could be a toss-up. This really could be a toss-up, I think. Kind of hard to predict this one, especially when there's no history between the two.
I'd say so. I'd say this is pretty close. They have similar experience on all the major levels. They haven't faced each other, so I'd be willing to say that it's probably going to go. It's very close. So I'd say that yeah, it's probably gonna be a close. I'd say it's gonna be a close one, but like I said, it might go another direction.
So I'll go out and kind of bowl. I'm gonna say, and I'm not gonna predict who's gonna win, but I'm gonna say that this will probably go 2 matches. I think someone is gonna be really strong-minded in this case. So I think whichever girl wins this one, I think she's gonna do it in 2. You sounded
like someone in playing Clue. I suspect it's going to be Felicity Taylor with the rope in the dining room.
So we have our third final X. Kayla Miracle versus Jennifer Rogers. And Kayla Miracle is the one who accepted her final X spot. She won the silver medal at the World Championships last year. She did appear at the Tokyo Olympics, so she's got that. Jennifer Rogers, what does she have?
Now, I wonder why she was able to win a silver in a larger bracket and not win a medal in a smaller bracket.
Sometimes you have an off tournament. I mean, look at what happened to Burrows. Burrows won the Olympic, the Olympic medal, I think in 2012, right? But then when he went to the 2016 Olympics, he was not able to. He got taken out in the first round.
No, that's certainly true.
Sometimes you're just gonna have a bad tournament. It is what it is.
This is
Rogers,
true.
Let me see here. She won an age group world medal, and she's also won a number of U.S. Open titles. And it says here she has been kind of running into injuries recently. So they did actually compete at the U.S. Open against each other in the finals. So Miracle had already qualified for Final X, didn't need to compete, but she went out there and wrestled anyway. And then she also wrestled at the Pan Am. And Matthew, look at the results of what happened at the U.S. Open.
18 seconds.
18 seconds.
And their first meeting back
was 7 years prior.
She was still dominant then. She teched her.
So Matthew, I think this probably goes without saying. Miracle.
Yeah, Miracle. Yeah, it's just.
I think that's.
It's like we can. It's like at any point we could say that a pin is a fluke. This ain't a fluke.
No,
We're talking about a silver gold medalist. She beat her once before, and then she beat her again. This ain't no fluke.
I'm gonna say Kayla Miracle in 2 matches.
Yep, 2 matches. I agree with you there.
Okay, so Sarah Hildebrandt, she accepted the Final X spot. There's only 1 match between them, and it happened in November of 2020. Hildebrandt teched Alyssa Lamp 12-1. So Hildebrandt, she's a world and Olympic medalist. Hard to say.
Wisconsin RTC that has to be another one of those events.
Probably.
'Cause, yeah, Wisconsin RTC. Neither of them are from Wisconsin.
Right. I'm not. Now,
that's one of those.
Don't seem to build up a lamp though.
Well, you can talk about her credentials all you want. It's not going to change the fact that she lost to Hildebrand, and Hildebrand's got everything going for her. She's a two-time world champion. Well, world medalist.
Lamp does have world medal experience. She took her medals in 2012 and 2013. So, but she has come out again. She is really trying to push herself. But, I think Hildebrand is definitely the younger wrestler right now. So she's got, time is a little bit more kinder to her. Excuse me. In terms of just, how your body can function and, how fast you can be and how strong you can be, so forth.
Yeah, I've heard about athletes, and I've read about athletes and aging. One of the last things to go is your power, not your speed. Your power. Your speed goes first. Your speed is one of the first things that goes first. So, Lamp could try. It's like. It's one of those things where she might be a more powerful wrestler, but if she's not the faster wrestler in this case, then
that's very, very true.
I call Hildebrand. It's like you could talk about everything she's done in the past. She's the old. It's like,
right. Yeah.
We've seen what happens. It's very rare to see an older wrestler try to pull something off if they're not already the dominant person.
I mean, Kale did the same thing. Kale, hey, he came out of retirement, and kind of surprising, but when you've been out of the scene for a while, it's very hard to come back and be able to do stuff.
Yeah, especially when you've got newer people on the
Right, you got younger, more powerful people than you. So, no disrespect to Lamb, but yeah, I think Hildebrand has more going for her right now. So, we'll see. And I almost have, and I don't know how big Alyssa Lamp is, but when you're a lot older, it's harder to get the weight down too.
Yeah, that's another thing.
So I'm very sure she is really putting in a lot, because 50 kilos, that's nothing to laugh at in terms of, weight class. I mean, she's made it this far. She did qualify. She won the so hopefully the weight cutting is not getting to her also.
If she's made it this far, that's probably not the problem.
Yeah.
She's made it. She's made it to the final X. I don't think weight cutting is the problem.
Yeah. Well, all right. And I think this is going to be the last women's match. Maroulis. Hedrick. So. This is interesting.
I'm calling it Maroulis.
Yeah, I think without a doubt. I'm kind of curious about
She's healthy.
Special wrestle-off for the world team. What in the world did that mean?
Wait, what?
The results back in 2018. Special wrestle-off for the world team. It didn't matter, but I'm kind of interested to see what exactly did that mean.
I wonder if that was when she was coming back from an injury and they were giving her some kind of special tryout. Mm-hmm. Like the end here, they're showing, Marlis' challenges with injury and concussions, a world documentary, and but I think she's healthy right now. I really do think she's healthy right now. So she won the bronze at the Olympics. She did well at the World Championships. So I'm willing to.
The thing I highlighted here is nothing to laugh at too. She's the first U.S. woman to win 2 Olympic wrestling medals. Think about that. It took until 2021, to get this far as women's wrestling has gone for the U.S. And I think that's more a testament as to how tough it is out there for
women's wrestling. Yeah, women's wrestling. Well, let's face it. Again, this is. I mean, I don't know. Some people might think it's sensitive. Some may not. If you're a member of the wrestling community, it's not going to be a sensitive topic. Women have a much shorter athletic span than guys do. Guys can last a tad bit longer, but women only have so short of an amount of time. We see that in sports on a regular basis.
Well, that also might depend on the sport. I mean, yeah, you see a lot of women. They start off a lot younger than the men.
Well, that's because as we know, women reach their physical apex a lot sooner than men. Like seeing women, competing in the Olympics in their teens, that's not unheard of. Seeing men compete in their teens is a lot more rare at the Olympics.
Especially in wrestling.
Yeah, because men peak in their mid to late 20s. Yeah, like throwing one out there, Henry Cejudo winning the Olympic medal at 21. That doesn't happen very often.
Or Kyle Snyder.
Yeah,
winning the Olympic gold at 19.
Yeah, that does not happen very often. So.
No, it doesn't. It does not happen.
Well, I'll throw another one out there.
Pretty quickly.
Well, I'll throw another one out there. John Jones was, I think, 22 or 23 when he won the UFC light heavyweight title. John Jones is an extremely gifted individual. So that doesn't happen very often. It's and John Jones is still the youngest champion.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't see guys making it typically. There are certain exceptions, certain sports, like I think Michael Phelps made his first Olympics actually was in Athens. That's where he went on his first medal run. His first Olympics was Sydney, 4 years earlier. And I don't think he even medaled. I don't even know if he even made it to the finals, but that's just an example. Another one I'll throw out there, I think Michael Jordan made his first Olympics at age 19, but that was in 88. That was the Olympics before they, they allowed the Dream Team to go that just destroyed everybody. So, yeah, it's just not, you just don't see, it's like women, they typically peak earlier. We do see exceptions. Like, I think there might be a woman in her 30s on the track team. And then there's this one gal in gymnastics. I think I've seen her in every single gymnastics. I think she's in her 40s. So that's not very common. So, yeah, you just don't see this normally.
All right, well, Marulus, Matthew?
Marulus, 2 matches.
2 matches. All right, so let's finish with Final X Men's Freestyle. Evan Henderson versus Yani Giacomolus. Now, I'll be a little bit biased towards Yani.
You really like this kid, don't you?
I like this kid. I think he's got one more chance to be a 4-time. He's got a chance to be another 4-time NCAA champion, and that would really put Cornell on the map because then they'd be the only school with multiple 4-time champions. So But Henderson could pull something off. He was at the World Team Trials in 2017, placed fourth. So this is his first Final X. But I just think Yani's got stuff going for him. He was on the U.S. team last year, so he was at the World Championships last year. So he's got that experience. Hard to say. I'd have to, and again, it's a little bit of admitted bias. I'd probably have to give it to Yani here. Wondering what you think, though.
I'm giving the slight edge to the I'm giving a slight edge to the defending world team member.
Yeah. So that would be Yani, who is the defending world team member. So definitely, we'll see what happens there. Then we've got heavyweight Hayden Zilmer versus Nick Jodowski. So Jodowski won the match. Won their only match at Yasar Dogu 3-0. And I do believe that he has team member experience. He placed second to Gable Stevenson at the Olympic trials last April, and he does have 2 world bronze medals. So USA Wrestling says that Jodowski probably will have the advantage. Zilmer is actually moving up in weight. He was competing at 97. So, when you're making that jump, it might be hard to make some adjustments right off the bat, don't you think?
Yeah, when you're moving up from that kind of a weight class, you're having to, obviously the major things that you're dealing with is the fact that, you're going from being in a weight class where everyone's about the same weight to being in a weight class where if you're cutting down, you're probably at most gonna be in the 230s, 240s. And you might have someone who at 125, that's what is that, 260 something?
It's 265. 265.
Yeah, so you might be wrestling someone who has a 20, 30 pound advantage over you. So you're in a situation where you essentially have to make sure that you're the quicker wrestler. That's what it comes down to.
Yep. So we'll have to see what happens. I probably would give it to Jodowski. And based on the fact that they've only wrestled one match, though, hard to say. But I think this could go 3 matches.
Slight edge to Jodowski. I agree. It could go 3 matches.
So then we've got Kyle Dake and Jason Knoll. So two guys whose names we know pretty well. Dake, obviously, the more known, the guy whose name goes up a lot more, obviously, because of his NCAA achievements, but then he does have world gold medals. He took bronze at the Olympics last year. Knoll, he was at Penn State, and had success there. He has been on the national team, but according to the article, he's never been on the senior world team. So, it's hard to say. I think Dake is still pretty hungry. Just by the fact that he'd been wrestling against Burrows all those years, and then finally unseated Burrows for the Olympic spot. I think Dake still, uses that as motivation, I think, to just keep going. Even though he took bronze, he did after that, qualifying himself based on, having these world gold medals to get into the spot for trying to be on the world team this year. So let's see all that's happened between the two. And it's been Dake all the way, although they wrestled each other last year. So they haven't wrestled each other since then. The Olympic team trials, Dake techs Nolf 11-0, and even before that, he's won 5-0. So, I think probably no disrespect to Nolf, but I would have to give the edge to Dake here, unless Nolf has really been putting something up that he could try to upset Dake with.
I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go with Dake.
And I would probably say Dake takes this one too.
Yeah. He's just the dominant wrestler right now, and he's just winning. So I think, he's going to do it.
All right. Burrows versus Chance Marsteller. So, Marsteller, he defeated Vincenzo Joseph in a best 2 out of 3 at the World Team Trials Challenge Tournament. And so what does Marsteller have going for him? Well, he won the Bill Farrell Memorial Tournament, and that qualified him for the World Team Trials. And then he placed 5th at the U.S. Open, and then won the Challenge Tournament. So how does that translate to him wrestling Burrows? So they did wrestle each other at the Yasar Dogu, but Burrows defeated Marsteller 8-0. Before that, they had wrestled at the World Team Trials last year. Burrows defeated Marsteller 4-1, and apparently, if I'm looking at this article correctly, Marsteller only scored on Burrows because he got him on the shot clock for passivity. So that means that aside from that, Marsteller really hasn't been able to get anything offensively against Burrows. It is his first Final X appearance, but, Burrows, reigning world champion, Olympic champion, and, and it says here, trying to make his 9th senior world team. He's also never lost at the Pan Ams. What do you think, Matthew?
Well, something I think is interesting, that little comment, currently tied with John Smith and Adeline Gray with 6 world or Olympic titles. Burrows is the reigning world champion in the weight class. There's a reason. John Smith is essentially the most successful international wrestler the U.S. has ever had.
Yeah.
It's just that's a legendary short list of people, and for Jordan Burrows to potentially, he's at the cusp of essentially becoming our greatest international wrestler ever. So, I mean, what can I say? It's just, he's the best.
Yeah.
At this weight class. I mean, he lost to Dake, but at this weight class, he's the best. So, it's Burrows too. No, there's just.
I think Burrows still has things to prove.
Yes.
And that's why he's doing this. That's why he keeps doing it. So, we'll see.
Like hypothetically speaking, if he were to win this, he wins this, and then he goes to World Championships, wins this medal. He is without a doubt. It's like statistically, no doubt. He's regardless of whether he beats Dake for the next Olympics, he is the best if he wins this next medal.
Well, and he's
got something that Dake doesn't have. He's got that Olympic gold medal.
Yeah. He's got. It's like, he wins this medal. He has nothing left to prove.
Well, I think he
Well,
does have something to prove because he does plan on challenging Dake in 2020.
Well, yeah. Well,
he wants that last outing with Dake.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Last match before we close up for the day. David Taylor versus Saheed Valencia.
Saheed.
It says David Taylor is the only 2020 Olympic champion at this event. He has world gold at 2018, world silver in 2021. He lost to Iran's Hassan Yazani. He had beaten Yazani previously at the Olympics.
So here's a very interesting thing. So, there's two nations that have this history of traditional folk wrestling that's unique to their nations. Aside from the U.S., we have American folk style, but Iran has their own. I can't remember what specifically the name of it is, but Iran has its own. Mongolia has their own, and you know the results of it. They have the greatest professional sumo rikishi of all time is a Mongolian. So that just goes to show that potential. But I think the reason why Iran is so good at wrestling is because they, like Americans, they grow up in their own style of wrestling, and that carries over into freestyle and Greco. But I just went off on a tangent, but I just felt like mentioning that with you had an Iranian.
That's interesting. I did not know that. Maybe that might be something. Maybe if I'm able to find results, maybe that might be something to add to the new stat site that I'm hoping to build. Both wrestlers have 2 NCAA titles to their name, but again, Valencia won the Pan Am Championships.
Taylor is a Kale pupil.
That's right. Taylor is a Kale protege.
Oh, but Saheed, coming from Arizona State, is a pupil of another coach who learned under Bobby Douglas.
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting, the coaching tree we have here. We have Kale and we have Zeke Jones, both of whom wrestled under Bobby Douglas. And we have 2 guys who wrestled under 2 proteges. It's very interesting when you see these learning trees.
Yeah, definitely. So
and of course, we're biased. Well, I'd say that
I don't have any bias in this one, to be honest.
Yeah.
I have no dog in this fight.
Yeah, it's like we like Saheed because he's from California. We like Taylor because he's from Penn State. So that's kind of why we both like these guys equally, and we aren't really biased one way or the other. We just want to see the best guy win.
I think it'll be interesting. I think this will be a 3-match event.
Yeah, no results. Taylor is the returning.
Yeah, no, there's no meetings between them. I would probably, though, I would give this to Taylor.
Yeah,
based on what's happening. I'm very sure Saheed will probably make some noise. I would still probably give it to Taylor, but I do think this will be a full 3-match series.
Saheed.
So that's my thoughts on it.
There's always a name behind. There's always a meaning behind the name. I wonder what the meaning behind Zaki is.
That's a good question.
Because that's not even a common Spanish name. How many Zahids have you heard of?
I haven't heard of too many Zahids. And his brother is Anthony. So
I forgot whose little brother.
I don't remember what the little brother is called.
It's more of a common name. There's a very, very simple way of doing this.
Yeah, that's true. So with that being said, Matthew, I think before we close it out,
here's Saheed is a male given name particularly popular in several Asia, Arabic.
Okay, yeah.
Do we know if I know that there was an Arabian diaspora and a bunch of Arabs went to South America, which is why Shakira and Selma Hayek are actually of Arabic descent.
Oh, I didn't know that.
They're known Hispanic people, but they come from they have second or third generation Arabic.
Huh.
It's actually why what's her name? That's actually where Shakira got her ridiculous hip belly dancing from.
Oh. Okay. So one thing I wanted to add before we close out for today, Matthew. So I was watching an interesting video from Clay Travis, who's he's more known to be a sports commentator for Outkick, although he does do political commentary as well. But I think the thing that I found most interesting was him talking about, so his son was playing in a little league game, and I guess they call this like a travel ball or something like this, and it was some tournament.
Yeah, they call it travel ball nowadays.
And he was having a beef with the umpire, who in his mind was making questionable calls. And
now is he a coach on his son's team?
No, he was a spectator. He was a spectator. And he's saying stuff like, the kids were getting called out for interference, or the kids, they were throwing their bats in an unprofessional manner, so the umpire was calling them out, and just kind of things like that, and kind of made me question. It's like, well, okay, how well does he know the rules versus the umpire knowing the rules? And obviously, there's going to be good and bad sports officials, sports referees, umpires, you name it. Even I will admit to having made some bad calls in the past. There was one time I even walked up to a coach after the match, because I was going over it in my head and like, you know what, I made the wrong call on that. I should not have called it a certain way. I mean, this kid was losing anyway, but, he had a beef with how I made a certain call, and so I go up to him, I say, you know what, I made the wrong call. I'm sorry. And, so, it's like, well, so anyway, after his son got called, and his son is 11 years old, his son gets called out, and Clay, starts heckling and cussing out the umpire, and the umpire hears it, and he knows it was Clay Travis that made those comments and all that, and he throws him out. And and at least according to Clay, he's claiming that the umpire said, I don't care, how popular you are and stuff. If you want to say it on your radio show, if you want to talk about me on your radio show, go ahead. And the thing was that I saw a lot of the comments on this video was kind of against Clay. It's like, well, you were in the wrong first for cussing out the umpire, and I think you would know. Like, remember that one time you tried to officiate wrestling, and you had some coaches, they really got on you. Remember that? It happened a long time ago.
There's a reason why I decided not to wrestle.
I was
I was thinking,
Well, if you don't like it, why don't you
That's
have your guys officiating? I'm officiating because your guys are not willing to officiate.
yeah. You know,
Do you remember when we were? Do you remember how we were doing that? It's like you and I were just going around from tournament to tournament, and we're officiating. Yeah, we're officiating, and well. I don't know if you were you wrestling. I was wrestling.
I think we both would go out there, wrestle, and officiate.
Yeah, that's
Although
what we would do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how they. Yeah. So I don't know if I don't know how they did it back in what's it called? I don't know how they did it in I don't know if they still do this at the USA Wrestling tournaments, but way back in the day it was, they would, if they could get guys if they couldn't get their own guys to officiate, they would accept other guys to go out there and officiate. I remember one or two times seeing kids that were like in middle school who were like officiating. Just thinking, this kid barely knows the rules. How are you making him officiate? And so, but yeah, they would just accept guys, and of course we stepped up when we were just like, oh, we know enough about the rules. We'll go out there and officiate.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'd go out there and they I forget how much they pay us. I think wasn't there a time that someone like slipped us $50 or something like that?
Yeah, Lawson used to pay the best. He would give us like $80 for.
Oh yeah, he was very nice.
Cross only gave us 20. We stayed like that whole day, and he only gave us $20. I remember that. But anyway, the thing is that
I think Cross was the low. Again, we've kind of talked about how Cross is a character. Yeah, I think he was the lowest. I think we on average got between 30 and 40. Lawson would. Wolf Lawson.
Yeah.
Wolf Lawson was paid as well.
So.
But
to kind of.
Something changed, and then I forget. Is Rabbit still coaching at Sonora?
Are you talking about the big guy?
Yeah, the big guy.
He's called. It's Coach David.
I don't know if that was Rabbit.
He's a kind of a bigger guy, and he's got a really heavy beard now. Might be a different guy that you're thinking of. Right now, Sonora's coached by Coach David.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, either way, so I think at some point they like him, in order to just save money, he just had all his guys officiate.
Yes, that's right.
Well, I remember what we did. You and I were at the same table. We'd switch off. Sometimes I would, depending on who was available, sometimes I would ref your matches. Sometimes you'd ref my matches. Sometimes we'd be able to find someone and we'd coach one another. But regardless, we essentially found a table and we essentially ran that table. And when we weren't wrestling, we were, we had the two ref system going there.
Yeah. Anyway, well, the thing,
which as we know, in freestyle Greco, it's more typical to see 2 or even 3 refs in there.
the last thing I wanted to just say was, I think just for Clay Travis, it's like, well, if maybe you should go out and umpire or officiate, because there's a big shortage right now for sports refs and umpires, because they don't want to deal with the parents anymore. They're done with it. So, I think if he could just kind of, it'd be a little bit more humble about that, and that umpire is not making the money that Clay Travis is making, because he's got a radio show and all that stuff, and he's probably making some pretty good money, especially running Outkick too. So that's what I got to say about that. Anyway, Math, I think we're gonna wrap it up here. So I think, as always, thank you for joining. And I think we're going to have our outros going too. But as always, Math, where...
Relatively soon, we're still trying to figure out. Well, we're gonna do. We're gonna start running the outros for the video. For the once I get it up for the audio. This is probably gonna sound weird because if anyone starts before we start doing the outros, it's because and they hear outro music, that's because it's applied retroactively to the episode.
All right, so Matthew, where can our audience members find us?
Well, let's see. As of right now, visually, we do the live show on Facebook Live. That may or may not change next week, depending on what experimenting and platforming decisions we make. The video podcast is on YouTube and Rumble. The audio podcast is on Acast, Apple, Spotify, and Google. More episodes to be out.
And Matthew can be found. Matthew can be found on Twitter, his personal Twitter at Matthew Salzer, and he does run MMA Freak, which is MMA-freak.com, and then he also operates the Twitter for that as well, MMA Freakout. So give him a follow on there. Probably next week we're gonna hope to implement a lot more variety into our episodes, just to kind of get more people in on here. So we are hoping to talk about sumo wrestling, and MMA going forward, just to kind of...
Oh, we'll have a doozy. The pay-per-view's on Saturday.
Oh, okay. So next week should be interesting, right, Matthew?
Yep.
All right, cool. So as always,
this will make it far more applicable to MMA Freak, because I do post these on MMA Freak.
So as always, everyone, thanks for joining in, and hope you have a great rest of your week.